Garnett Genuis is the Member of Parliament for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan in Alberta. That's actually Sheila Gunn Reid's riding. And he's one of the good guys. At least in his heart he is. Sometimes he lacks the courage of his convictions, though, which always breaks my heart. I remember when I interviewed him a few years ago about why he would go along with one scheme to endorse the Paris global warming targets, which meant a carbon tax and all sorts of net zero BS. I honestly can't remember if the Red Tory leader at the time was Andrew Scheer or Aaron O'Toole, but it doesn't really matter. You'd think an MP from Alberta, with major oil and gas operations right in his district, would stand up for his people rather than appease some placeholder Red Tory leader. I asked him about that, and I was not impressed with the answer.
So you say, with honesty and belief, that you believe being part of the United Nations Paris Agreement makes it easier to sell Alberta oil? Is that what you're saying?
Ezra, I think that if we were to say we are one of a very small number of countries that are outside of it, we would,
like the United
in certain
States.
Environments, it would make it much more difficult. For instance, in Europe, right? We have, I think, an opportunity by getting the Energy East pipeline built to market our oil resources to Europe, and that requires us to sell what our policy mix is. To show
Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia. You know who sells oil to Europe? Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia. Do they have to sell their policy mix? You are sounding like Justin Trudeau. Does Saudi Arabia have to sell itself?
You'll get no argument from me that there are huge problems environmentally in terms of human rights.
You think China doesn't want our oil?
Yeah, I raise these issues repeatedly, the human rights issues themselves, as well as the fact that Canadian energy is a much better alternative than this.
You haven't answered my question.
But I'm just saying we should put our best foot forward here, Ezra, right? Like you need to recognize that. I think that we can put our best foot forward and we can fight on the issues that matter, on carbon taxes, on pipelines, and we can get better results if we actually position ourselves for success in that argument.
Yeah. You know what? Rachel Notley has been using those exact lines for 2 years. She's saying if we just stab ourselves in the eye, if we just stab ourselves in the eye, and we'll buy social license. That's what you're saying. We'll buy.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Because the Paris Agreement doesn't stab us in the eye. The Paris Agreement has no negative impact on us.
Have you read the Paris Agreement?
The targets.
Have you read it?
Ezra,
have you read it?
Knowledge for me.
Have you read it?
The Paris Agreement involves Canada setting our own targets, which are ultimately non-binding.
Have you read it?
We take issue with the carbon tax that Rachel Notley is proposing, that Justin Trudeau is proposing. We are opposed to the carbon tax, and that's a critical difference. That's not critical.
Have you read the Paris Agreement?
Yes.
You've read the entire Paris Agreement?
Yes.
Were you whipped into doing this?
On every, not every, but almost every vote, we receive a recommendation from the whip. Personally, I don't know what other conversations other members had. I never discussed it with the whip because I was convinced and remain convinced that our vote was the right decision.
I mean it when I say he's one of the good guys, but the thing about being a good guy is you have to do it. You have to act on it. You can't just be good in your heart quietly. That's not enough. At least it's not enough for a member of parliament. I mean, look at the word parliament. It comes from to speak out, to advocate. Ordinary private citizens can keep their own counsel. Ordinary people have the right to remain private. You don't have to jump into every battle. But if you positively signed up for the battle, if you signed up for politics, if you ran on a promise to say certain things, the battle of ideas is actually your job. You gotta act on it. Now, I really do like Garnett Genuis, in case you're in any doubt, but look at this that he wrote late last night. You tell me if you are as disappointed as I am. He wrote this on X, now called, or used to be called Twitter. He said, I have disappointing news to share about further attacks on free speech. My event at York University, scheduled for this Friday, is now canceled due to a decision of the student union not to allow it. I'm pretty surprised. We've done the same event concept at universities in 4 provinces without incident. I stand in a public area in front of a banner and talk to students as they walk by about jobs and unemployment. But the student union at York won't allow it. York students who want to talk about jobs and unemployment should please contact my office. I still want to hear your stories. So that's it. Instead of going to the students where they are with the hope of meeting people, not just diehard conservatives, but people who aren't political, people who aren't convinced, to engage them and convince them, you think it's a substitute to tell them to phone your MP's office, actually not even their own MP's office, to phone you out in Fort Saskatchewan. Who came up with that one? That is not a substitute. That is not good enough. Here's what I wrote in reply to Garnett Genuis on Twitter, and I tried to be the friendliest version of myself. I said, "Hi, Garnett. I think you could have a different response than just accepting this outcome and tweeting about it. Number one, I think you should go to court. The student union may be governed by the Charter of Rights and therefore have an obligation to respect your freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, etc. Even if they're not governed by the Charter, there are likely other procedural rules of fairness that apply. It's already Thursday, but you should go to court anyways because you could reschedule the York University meeting for another day. Number two, the student union may have the ability to eject you from their property, e.g. if you were set to speak in a building owned by them, but they wouldn't have the ability to ban you from anywhere else on campus. There are plenty of meeting rooms, even auditoriums on campus where they have no power. Number three, most people who are banned from campuses don't have the money, know-how, or large media presence to fight back. You have all three. I think it behooves you to push back against the censorship, not only for yourself, but to set a legal and political precedent for others. And number four, frankly, why wouldn't you just show up? What are they going to do, arrest you? At most, they give you a trespass notice, which you'd ignore and continue to talk. If they finally did call real police, then slowly leave. And let that be the defining image for York University in 2026. Spark a larger debate about freedom, get the Board of Governors and the university president on the record. It is not acceptable for a student union to ban an MP from speaking on campus. Going along with it strengthens it. That's what I wrote. What do you think? There's other points I could have made too, like maybe they're breaching a contract or inducing a breach of contract. I'm thinking like a lawyer for a second. It almost doesn't matter. The point is to fight and to show a bit of courage, not to back down at the first whiff of wokeism. I mean, if a member of parliament can't stand up to censorship at York University student union, how is an ordinary student expected to do so? I mean, you're a grown man with a lot of power. And if you can't stand up, how could some 18 or 19-year-old stand up? Isn't part of being in public life, part of being a leader, isn't it being a role model, setting an example? Some loser left-wing student who says, no, you can't come. And you say, okay, anyone can phone me out there in Fort Saskatchewan. Now, after I posted my response, Garnett Genuis wrote this. He said, some people have suggested that I proceed with the event anyways. Yeah, that'd be me. I am willing to do so-called unauthorized events on campus. I did one previously at Concordia. I don't believe that student unions should be able to shut these things down. In this particular case, I've been working with a group of local students to facilitate the events. I don't want to create a situation in which they could face indirect consequences. I'm always ready to deal with controversy. Are you really, mate? Are you really? But I don't want to leave someone else holding the bag. Well, isn't that what you just sort of did? So, bottom line, I expect to be back at York, but not this Friday. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I don't want to create a situation in which they could face indirect consequences. They're precisely the ones who have to suffer the direct consequences of you bailing. You quit their event because some woke student said you can't do it. And what consequences are you referring to? Is there some threat against them? And if so, you've just accepted that. Or you're letting it stand without pushing back? I'm sorry, I just don't think that's good enough. You can't be the cowardly lion. You got to have some courage. Not when you have the power of an MP's office behind you. You have nothing to lose. You can't be fired. Your expenses are covered. You're your own boss. You're very strong as an MP. You can challenge this petty ruling. If you get in trouble, Parliament's Board of Internal Economy will take care of you, for example, paying for your legal defense. I know that. You've got access to every journalist in Canada. You could send an email and get on CBC, CTV, Global News immediately. You have power. But you're bending the knee to some woke urchin. You need to channel a bit of that U.S. Senator from Louisiana, John Kennedy, not the late president, but this guy.
I'm talking about the cultured, cosmopolitan, goat's milk latte drinking, avocado toast eating insiders elite.
Why not have some fun? Why not make this a free speech moment instead of just slinking away? Why not name and shame the person who's censoring you? Why not put them on the back foot? Why not make them justify themselves, put them on the defensive instead of mumbling your justifications? Why not act like an MP? Why not act like a free man? Why not act like a Canadian and say, you are un-Canadian. I'm not going to cancel. I'm going to come to talk and you can arrest me if you don't like it. Why don't you strap on some balls? And why not make them send out police to threaten to arrest you? The police will not want to do so. At the very least, you'll walk out when they arrive and not be arrested. But it'll be a scene the entire country will watch, and it'll be a great shame on York University. Why didn't you even name the person who did it to you? The university itself will surely be compelled to clarify its support for free speech. Or if you want to be a bit braver, frankly, why not let them handcuff you and drive you off? They're not going to keep you in prison. They'll be out in an hour. You know they're not going to charge you. They'll release you in an hour. If they do charge you, it's under the Trespass Act. You'll get a $100 fine. My point is, why are you acting like you are the outsider? You are the problematic one. You are the unusual one, instead of just saying, no. I mean, whoever would seek to ban a Canadian MP from talking to students, that's the unusual one. That's the weirdo. That's the one deviating from our national beliefs. I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. At Rebel News, our main job is to report the news. And sometimes we get illegally hassled by security, by protesters, by police even. And we fight back every time. Even though we don't have a public budget, even though we're not MP after our name, we fight back. David Menzies was arrested 5 times. We always got him out of jail. We're suing the police. He never actually spent overnight in jail. We would always get him out even if it was midnight. We fought back and we're still fighting back. It's one of the most expensive things we do because the government has unlimited budgets. Well, that's the thing about being an MP. He has a big government budget too, by the way. And if he's ever sued or prosecuted, he has an unlimited budget. Now, I'm disappointed. I've reached out to Garnett to invite him to come on the show and talk with me about this. I sort of doubt he'll come on, but I hope he will. I'm worried that the Conservative Party of Canada is losing some of its verve. You know, my colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid reached out to Pierre Poilievre's officer for a year-end interview like so many others are doing. And by the way, Pierre Poilievre has done a lot of podcasts and influencers. He's, I saw him do an interview to the trucker Pleb, who's a really good guy. And there's just so many. He did one with Juno News. He's doing a lot of them. But Rebel News just couldn't fit in their schedule, they said. Okay, well, Christmas is over. How's your schedule looking now? Or is it that we're slipping back into that era, that Aaron O'Toole, Andrew Scheer era, when they would let the mean girls of the regime media bully them? Are we back to Aaron O'Toole saying, don't talk to those trucker people? Are we back to, don't talk to Rebel News? What's going on? Why wasn't Sheila Gunn-Reid allowed to talk to Pierre Poilievre? If the Conservative Member of Parliament from the Conservative province of Alberta in the Conservative riding of Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, I know he's got it in him. I mean, look at this speech he gave at a citizenship ceremony a couple years ago.
We weren't settled through the leveling down of a censorious state. We were built by fearless pioneers like all of you, seeking opportunity and freedom. That is, the freedom to speak, to advance your own deeply held convictions.
That's good stuff. You see, he's got it in him. He's using the language of freedom and anti-censorship, but he said it in a speech with no risk. It was just in front of a bunch of new Canadians who were just listening to a politician before they got their citizenship. There was a no-risk situation. How about giving that same speech delivered tomorrow at York University, instead of letting them run you off with just a mean tweet?